You're listening to Errol Parker and Clancy Overall, editors of the Batuta Advocate on Desert Rock FM. Welcome back to the Batuta Advocate radio show, recording live from the Diamantina Shire in the Queensland Channel Country. You're with myself, Clancy Overall, editor, and of course, editor-at-large, Errol Parker. And today we're joined by two guests based out of the wild, wild west of West End in Brisbane. We've got Dr. Chelsea Bond and Angelina Hurley. Thank you for joining us. This is the Wild Black Women podcast.
Hi. Thanks for having us. Yeah, we're big fans of your work.
Yeah,
big fans.
yeah.
And likewise, with your program, obviously on every Friday across the NIRS, National Indigenous Radio Network, and online. It's an interesting time right now in the, I guess, global and Australian news cycle where this interesting things happened, where we haven't had much live sport, we haven't had any live music, and we really haven't had much reality TV. So the world was able to just kind of sit back and focus on this thing called police brutality for a little bit. And it resulted in nationwide protests in Australia and
around the world.
Around the world, but for the first time, we've actually seen the American, African American community and other minority groups mobilise in a way certainly haven't seen in my lifetime. And that's why we thought we'd have you guys on today. We know you've touched on a lot of this stuff on your show. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this, the protests we saw in Australia, which obviously they tried to shut down in some states, do you think they've just been sitting there latent? Do you think it was a perfect storm for us to talk about these things, or do you think it was well and truly time?
Blackfellas have long campaigned for the rights of other people, not just ourselves.
Yeah.
We haven't just been committed to the Black people's lives. We've been committed to concern about the treatment of people seeking asylum. There's a long history of our activists doing the work for everybody. But up here in Meanjin, Larissa Baldwin and Get Up led the Candlelight Vigil in solidarity with the US, but also in remembrance of the blackfellas who died in custody. And so I think there's this thing about there is a moment where blackfellas who have long stood in solidarity with Black people globally, we're seeing that play out. I think sometimes it's frustrating because it's not reciprocated by other Black people. And in part of these conversations, I've been having arguments with people who are insisting that, Aboriginal people in the Pacific aren't Black. And that we can't be saying Black Lives Matter about ourselves. There is an opportunity to have a conversation about what Black solidarity is in a local and a global context. Yeah.
I mean, I noticed you guys, particularly in Brisbane, big IRA sympathiser hotspot there too. So a lot of solidarity with the Fenians over there on the Emerald Island.
So just the other day we saw that Scott Morrison, he said there was no slavery in our history, and for all we know, he probably thinks that's the truth. How much do you think this real issue stems from a lack of education?
I don't think there's any an excuse to use that excuse anymore.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Black people have been doing the work for a very long time. Even under that umbrella of there's not enough information and education out there. Yes, there is. There's heaps.
Yeah, right.
I think it's just Google.
Yeah, hello. But even, they got technology now. It's not hard.
Which they invented all of it, as they continually remind us, because we didn't even come up with the wheel.
Yeah.
I think we often say it's about education, and a lot of Blackfellas take an educative approach to racism, as though if we just tell them that, yes, this happened to us, that then they will go, oh, yes, I forgot that we massacred Black people here and that we enslaved them, even though it was in our legislation, embedded and written in. We have an education system designed by the colonisers that reproduces the lies this place has told about itself, including the doctrine of terra nullius. And I've been whinging about my daughter's high school assignment in the week of the Mabo decision anniversary, where she had to write an assignment that looked at the different perspectives on the decision and the pros and cons, because it was controversial. And so we actually are making black people
The pros and cons of
debate
Marlborough.
And I've had, this is not the first time. I got like, it's not my first rodeo with crazy assignments. I'm not sure what their pedagogical approach is, but I do ask them about it. I had this one where finally in Year 6 history, my son, that in that semester they were looking at the Protection Act and stolen children, and literally the first task was to talk about the pros and cons. And there was, I kid you not, a table that said pros and cons that he had to write down.
In the classroom?
And in the classroom.
Okay.
And they also got a letter that the teacher decided to show the rabbit-proof fence movie because, of course, that's the only...
Yeah.
Anyway, so they had to watch that in class. But before they did, every parent in that class got a letter which said, explaining why they were watching the video and that the children could elect to not watch the video if they didn't want to.
Yeah, a bit like...
So you can still pick and choose what part of history you want to be exposed to.
Pick and choose, right.
Because it reminds me of a school trip I went on in high school, and they took us, Brisbane down to Sydney, and they took us on a little trip out to Rouse Hill, where that big mansion is standing on, colonial mansion is standing on the hill. And as soon as you walk through the front door, there's like artifacts and nullas and stuff all over the walls and all in the hallway as you walk in. And then there's this big diorama of little miniature farmers and colonists, and one little black fella way up the back standing in the corner of this big field. And one of the kids asked the curator, the Migaloo curator, going, "Oh, there's one Aboriginal person. What happened to them?" And she said, "I don't know. I think they all just left." And this mansion overlooks this big hill where they actually pushed all the blackfellas off the hill and massacred them and made them kill themselves. And I'm like, I put my hand up and I went, "No, I don't think that's what happened."
What you call dispersal, we call genocide.
Yeah, they just left.
Those
left.
pioneers would be disappointed what their beautiful Rouse Hill looks like nowadays with all the WRXs getting around and the quiet streets. It's a bit different. It's the Wild West out there now. So you're saying we need more dioramas in the classrooms? Is that what we're saying?
Chuck a few more Aborigines in there.
With nullas in their hands. Hey. Look out.
Seen in the Australian media, obviously Samantha Armitage is getting a bit of international kind of traction.
Hashtag yours.
You want to tell your woman how to behave?
She's...
Bunch of women in line there. She's out of control.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that we get a message to her, but she's...
But yes.
Yeah,
she's all upset. She's getting taken to court for racial discrimination.
Was that the one where they had Prue McSween, conservative commentator, red wine conservative from Melbourne, and they had like the Brisbane A-League reporter on a panel on Sunrise? That was really clutching at straws.
Just a correction, it's Prue rising like a phoenix McSween. I'll have you know. Rising like a phoenix to insist that there should be another stolen generation. Didn't get it right the first time.
Only Prue, she's gold.
It was an interesting comment because she managed to get Sunrise viewers offside with that, which means it's pretty...
That's a hard thing to do. That deserves a lobby.
Pretty red hot.
Walkley.
It was brave commentary.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think they hand them out in court, really, do they? Only.
No.
Oh, bless them. It's. I just love because everyone's the fact that the world's like clued on to Sam Armitage and that clip about the twins.
Yeah.
Going, oh my goodness. And it's like, wait, there's more.
She said,
I get too excited. There's a file.
That's why I'm saying, I can't believe this is on Australian TV. Really? I turn it on every day.
Is that the clip that they roll when they're trying to explain what unconscious bias is when she says...
that word.
So this twin has come out white. Good on ya.
What a stroke of luck! Woohoo! Oh my God!
Obviously, Australian media is diversifying slowly. We've got, of course, the Wild Black Women podcast. We've got, obviously.
Can someone tell Waleed that? Because he got confused and thought there was no black media a minute ago.
Yeah.
He thinks there's no Indigenous voices in media.
There seems to be a running thread where the Wild Black Women they talk about Waleed Ali. A lot of the rednecks will tell you Waleed Ali is the biggest lefty that ever lived, and he's a he's a snowflake virtue signaler. Inside the tent, the Wild Black Women podcast anyway have different views on the man.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is how bad it is that the people, the whole thing that race and racism is a product of left and right politics is a lot of nonsense, firstly. All settlers benefit from racism because that's how they're here on this the promise of race that they constructed in which we were not even human. So that's the foundation of our dispossession. So all settlers benefit from that, and so it's not about whether it's Labor or Liberal, or Greens even. Some articulate their racism in a more sophisticated way, and so Waleed is problematic. But I don't even think is he left leaning?
That's
He's
what
very
all those.
central on the
I
show.
think he's like
It's like Joe Hildebrand claiming he's middle centre.
Yeah. I guess all the motorbikes on Facebook reckon Waleed's a lefty.
yeah.
Right.
And this is how bad it is. That's seen as that's extreme left or whatever, and going, oh no, that's actually really conservative.
Yeah.
That's how messed up this place is.
Yeah. For me, it was like naivety in me that lives in hope that there's a coloured person on TV and they might actually be on our side. It's a Trevor Noah experience. It's the, oh my God, which I should never have even bothered to
Say his name.
Don't say it.
Mention them dimples.
But yeah, Waleed was like that for me. I was like, when he started, I was like, it's not an Indigenous person, but there's a brown person on TV. Maybe
Chelsea Brown here.
Maybe they'll say something in solidarity with us, but no good.
Black people have long been, hanging on any brown person being on television as some kind of hope.
I know.
In the absence of the Aborigines.
I know.
Better that than Chris Lilly.
I know. Well, do you want to hear my little recent experience about when they were doing the memorial in the park with the candles that day? I went to a coffee shop on the way to 98.9 and I grabbed a coffee from, I won't out the ethnicity, should I? Or just not? Oh, just because I don't want to be like that.
I don't even know where you're going with it. So
Come on.
Okay,
Keep digging.
I went and grabbed a coffee and I've been going in there for years and they've never asked, they've just treated me like the nice, black person that comes and gets a coffee, whatever, never questioned me. And they said to me, oh, do you work for Sisters Inside? And I looked and I was like, what? No. And I was like, no, I work for the Aboriginal radio station on the hill. And they all stopped literally together and stared at me for like 3 seconds, the whole room. And then I went, the Aboriginal radio station on the hill. So I spoke real slow. She went, oh, yes, I thought I saw something about on the news last night in West End. She said, I said, oh, yeah, they had a vigil in the park. And she said, oh, was it violent? And I went, it was effing candles in a park. I just couldn't believe.
Well, actually, they're on pitchforks.
Yeah.
But from the drone, you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
I just like, by that stage, I've got my huge hot coffee in my hand.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm not coming, swearing at myself in the car. I'm not buying coffee from here ever again.
Well, she's probably, yeah. I mean, it's a candlelight vigil in Musgrave Park, which she could have been confused with the Greek club where they've been throwing Molotov cocktails at the US Embassy over there in Athens.
Yeah.
I mean, they really know how to hold a candlelight vigil. So what are your thoughts on Australian media? Obviously, there's not much of an effort. I think Brooke Boney it would be the first black face on breakfast TV for sure in Australia. And do you think that kind of leads into it? You can say that the education is no longer an excuse, but do you think there is a selective history? And like, as you said before, you can opt out of watching Rabbit Proof Fence in primary school. and the Australian media can kind of opt out of discussing Black Lives Matters at a level outside of COVID-19 violations and looting. Do you think that plays a big part in the actual psyche?
Yeah, I mean, I have to thank Australian media. I mean, we have a show because of it, because of how bad it is, and the fact that, you know, I share a lot of your headlines and stuff on social media, and you always get the black fellas who get wild about the headlines because they don't realise that they're not real headlines. But in this case, you can't tell the difference on many days. I mean, they trumped you on the whole getting the Order of Australia for Tony Abbott for his service to Indigenous communities. That should have been your headline.
Yeah.
Do you feel robbed? Little Tony. Well, maybe you actually had that headline and then they just, you know, like imitating us.
Well, some people saying the award was based off all this good work that they were reading in our newspaper. That's so
it's your fault.
Sometimes
I feel like
we've just been highlighting his good work. No one else has because you know, there's a leftist agenda in the Australian media.
I think the conversation about media representation has to go beyond counting black people. It's about a conversation around content. And the kind of criticality that's needed in this moment. I mean, because in the course of, you know, with this moment, this movement, so many black fellows I've spoken to are reliving the trauma of racial violence. They're going, I don't know, I just thought of this time when I was 4 and I saw this and this happened. Like, people are actually playing this out every day at the moment. Yep. And then when we read these headlines and these stories that are just wrong, that are just so insulting and offensive, it's a form of violence. And so Australian media is brutalising black people in real time right now. We do a show that's specifically designed to nourish the souls of black fellas, in particular black women, and to laugh at the outright craziness. But underneath that, this stuff is violent and hurtful. And we're just kind of trying to reclaim a space to remember what it is to be human in a world that continues to dehumanise us in the name of news and facts. When we know it's not factual. I mean, the PM with the slavery thing.
Oh, God.
This is our Prime Minister.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned before we started recording, you started mentioning it wasn't just, obviously, the South Sea Islander community, of which you have South Sea Islander heritage, Dr. Bond. It wasn't just Melanesian, Polynesian kind of indentured servants that put into this unpaid labour regime. There was also a lot of Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that is certainly not discussed in any dioramas around.
There was I have first-hand experience of that. All along those cane fields up and down the east coast, Garang mob. There's a huge diversity of ethnicities there, and predominantly Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander, and South Sea Islander, because, you know, as happens as intermarriages. So most of that mob are all my family, and they all worked as slaves on the cane fields. My mother comes from a mission. Her family was removed from Claremont and treated as a slave, as a domestic, went out and never saw any wages. From the age of 13, she was made to service rich white people and look after their kids and cook and clean from 4 a.m. until whenever they decided to go to bed. Missed out on a whole schooling. So, everyone's got a first-hand experience of the slavery imposed and the oppression imposed on Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people in the workforce.
Like, children were enslaved in our lifetime. Like, this is like mother. Like, we're not talking great seventh generation. No, we're talking about our elders living right now. I had to explain to Tim or Tom, whatever his name was last night. In Queensland, we had the Protectionist Act from the 1890s through to the 1960s. Every blackfellow can basically will articulate their family tree by that act in terms of where mob were put on what missions and reserve systems. So every single Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person under that legislation were made wards of the state, like could not do anything without permission. And under that, because we were expected to die out, when we didn't die out, we got sent off on these working and trained as a cheap labour force. And there's this campaign, which people might have heard of, stolen wages. Only Leslie Williams has been fighting for a long time to get that money back. I mean,
they never got paid.
Like, how is this not slavery? And not to mention the abuse of young Aboriginal girls during that time that were sent out to work at 14. We know where the half-caste menace came from, and that was the sexual exploitation of girls sent to work on these properties.
An uncle of mine who passed away only last year, I remember the storytelling, he said, how come you guys didn't get sent to a mission in that area? It was because the local farmers in the cane field wanted slave labour. So they got all the Aboriginal people and all the Islander people to work for them for nothing or, very little. So they got to stay on land. Like that was a privilege because, they didn't get shipped away to a mission because, they needed people to work the land. And so sometimes when I get in trouble for this, but sometimes when I hear farmers complaining about stuff, I'm not on that side. Just say that.
Not today, Alexis. Not today.
No, you're in a drought. Oh.
Yeah, you're telling us you don't get caught up in the drought porn, do you?
No.
Still got 5 kids at boarding school. It's all right.
Yeah.
Hey!
And a Land Cruiser. Yeah.
You're lucky your butt.
Help me.
Luxury off-road vehicles. Work cars. An interesting thing we're obviously seeing and hearing a lot more about during these Black Lives Matter protests is the concept of the ally. Saw a lot of them in Bristol the other day. It looked like a lot of white people pulling down statues.
Yeah.
One of the biggest marches in the country over the weekend. Brisbane's always been a hotbed for the heart of kind of protest in Australia, particularly under the late Sir Joe. But you hear yarns coming out from up there, particularly from, the Black Panthers chapter that they had in Brisbane, that there were these surprising allies they had. And one I remember hearing from Arnie Marlene Cummins was the Quakers. Were kind of discreetly funding all of these Aboriginal rights organisations. Who knows? The Quakers were comrades. Who else have you noticed along the way, or you've read about in history that might have been discreetly... You
just have to go back to Ani Udri-Noonuccal, who was in the war, who served, and who used to walk and march with the Communist Party and got crap for it because she was just trying to give an Indigenous voice, a feminist voice to her people and who she was as an Aboriginal woman, and that's the only place that she could do it because she wasn't let in the white women, the normal white women's marches and protests. So she was who used to walk with the Communist Party. So of course she was like outed as a commie and this and that. She was just trying to have her voice heard and her.
When you're 3%, you've got to take support wherever it comes from. It's a numbers game.
You're not getting that from the temperance suffragettes. You've got to march with the communists.
No.
But I think, and that's the thing. There is a conversation we have. I mean, we're having a conversation about what is Black solidarity, but there is a conversation about what does it mean to be a good ally. And I'm going to make my little checklist.
Please,
do the work
for our sake.
Yep. Do the work, turn up, but also know your place.
Yeah.
Don't centre your feelings or remind people of your labour that you're contributing, which you can withdraw the moment you don't like something that any black critique you get subjected to. What else, Ange? Be prepared to get locked up. What else?
Don't appropriate culture and start selling T-shirts.
Yeah.
The Socialist Alliance pamphlets.
Yes, it's not a time to sell your merch. To recruit your members.
That's not solidarity.
And there's some awesome white people who go unnamed in the course of their work, and that's good allyship. It's like because all of us do that in different spaces, and we just turn up to amplify to back someone else up. And so I think there is this important conversation to have. We need people to, I encourage people to exercise their white privilege by getting angrier because the indignant, angry white woman can change the world. Karen. She can see your manager in a second.
Karens for Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Use your powers for good instead of evil. And we won't mop your hair. All your dance moves. That one.
Yeah, anyway.
So you're telling the Karens of the world, maybe when there is a protest, don't get up on stage at Musgrave Park. You don't need to talk into the microphone right now.
No. Go help clean up the park and pick up some rubbish and hand out hand sanitizer. Be a medic. Yeah, do some work and just go, I'm here to help. Tell me what to do.
Serve the elders tea.
Yes, this is
a big job.
Be of service to black people.
That's right.
That's it. That's the list.
Yeah.
Just be of service to black people, including getting roused by them, because we all get roused by black people.
Yeah.
Well, Can you tell us what it was like to meet Trevor Noah?
A hero.
Yeah. He has an international platform.
Perhaps it wasn't the circumstances, the ideal circumstances that led to you meeting Trevor Noah. Can you just tell the listeners a little bit about that experience with, speaking of allies?
Or as Amir said the other week, with brown men who've let us down. I mean, people know he told that joke about, Aboriginal women being ugly but sexually available, basically, and put us in a separate category from black women who are beautiful, and all women are beautiful kind of, joke to, at least we know, because apparently we play didgeridoos, we could give good head if anything else. And this joke was 5 years ago. And we went and he was saying, like, this is in the past, it was so long ago. It was literally bookended between Me Too and Black Lives Matter, if you look at the timeline.
Yeah.
So this...
and found out about it just before he took off on his Australian tour. It was like, really? He's coming here with that joke and he ain't going to get called out? I don't think so.
And we used to play him a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I love the Daily Show. What we learned from that whole affair was that there are fantastic writers for the Daily Show.
Yeah.
So
the writers are brilliant.
You were waiting,
and he can read a script like it's his own.
Yeah, he can perform and read a script.
Is that what he said? He said he didn't write that.
Oh no! In terms of his politics, we thought we knew him by the Daily Show. That's his value system.
Yeah.
But what he did when he came to our country, when he sat in front of 3 black women who we did the educative approach with him. We were open palmed. We did bring in Murri to lay the groundwork, but we were generous with him because we saw him as a brother. Yeah. And when we realised that he didn't see us as sisters.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He just didn't see us as that. And so, and the way in which his responses, he contradicted what he says on the show. And it was like, oh, okay, that's a script. You have writers for that show.
Yeah.
You just know how to perform.
Bit of a wally.
He's a good performer.
Yeah, they're probably
give them an auto cue and they're fine.
Yeah.
Were you waiting at the airport for him? How did it all go down? How did you ambush him? I want to know about that.
Fred Leone, bless him, because we were all excited about he's coming to Australia, and everything. Fred Leone on Facebook puts that clip up, and just tags all the sisters in and stuff. I'm in Luxembourg editing a textbook, and I'm jet lagged and can't sleep, and I'm seeing this play out, and I'm just wild. So I do a Twitter thread talking about this, and how black people in the US and globally let us down when they fail to see us as black. So Uncle Trev slid into my DMs.
Oh.
And was like, Chelsea.
On the front foot.
Right.
No DPs. For the kids at home, no DPs. But, and then he's like, oh, look, when I come to Australia, I'd like to talk to you about it. And I went, oh, as it happens, I've got a radio show. Come on, my black woman. And so his people spoke to our people, and we flew down to Melbourne for his first show, and he gave us the 1 hour media exclusive, didn't do any press while he was here, gave us the 1 hour, sat us down, and then he sat us in the front rows of his first show, which we then walked out of.
Yeah. I think we stayed for like 5 minutes in, or was it that long?
Oh, I don't know. I
probably way too long.
I was a few wines in, and then I was like, I'm not doing this. Because we did that hour, where we were
very accommodating. We were educative, nice. We're kind of giving him benefit of the doubt, giving him an opportunity to explain himself. And all he did was make excuses, denials, and offended us even more.
Okay,
Edge even let him press her hotkeys.
I let him press my hotkeys.
Like her magic buttons for our sound effects that we have on the show.
Didn't know what that was, so sorry.
This is a show. But so we did all that stuff, which is fine. Anyway, but we finished. We took a photo afterwards. We were like, okay, this is where it's at. Because the thing was, he revealed himself. We didn't have to drag him.
Yeah.
He just wanted the photo.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't
know what he wanted, really. I don't understand what. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, I appreciated that he faced some Aboriginal when he came here, and that I respected that because I think he underestimated what he was coming into.
Yeah.
And I think he realised too far in that the strategy was wrong, but he couldn't backtrack from it in the middle of this reported thing.
Yeah.
But what got me was that, so he had his set prepared. We do our thing with him. It's all fine. It's a reasoned conversation. He does his show where he speaks about the experience kind of in a veiled way. But he mimicked the people who were angry at him about the joke and was very like animalistic in his depiction of the critique he got. And you've got 3 Aboriginal women sitting there who just spent an hour with you talking in a reasoned way with facts and trying to appeal to him to see our humanity, our femininity, our beauty, our, strength. And he aped us on stage where we had ringside seats to his show. That was an insult. And that's what we got up and walked out. But he started off the whole sentence.
Did he see you walk out?
Yeah. The whole
Yeah.
stadium saw us.
Yeah. But the thing is, like Dave Chappelle, he came to Australia to do jokes for white people.
Yeah.
And the whole first set was about Bali. Him go to Bali.
Yeah, and getting
So you know who the market was.
Yeah.
Like Dave Chappelle did koala and didgeridoo jokes when he came here. He didn't do any of his racism connoisseur jokes.
Yeah.
So they come to this place buying into the myth that this is a white Australia.
So you reckon?
And that's when these fellas listen.
You reckon they need to take a more Ed Sheeran approach?
I'll put on a T-shirt.
When Drake came to Australia, he's obviously said to his 23-year-old publicist, look, I'm going to started from the bottom, now we're here. So I need you to put me in an underdog jersey. And they put him in a Wallabies. He wore a Wallabies jersey on stage in Sydney. I was like, mate.
Oh, no! But
No.
yes, it's true.
No one working for you ever heard of the Rabbitohs? Or, I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah, I guess
God.
all 8 people who still go to the Wallabies, they were right.
Really, he took the underdog thing a bit too far there. They haven't won against New Zealand in about 10 years. Thank you for joining us today, particularly with the news cycle that is. And Dr. Bond, I know you were on the drum as well. That's just
That was an experience.
Yeah. It's the right thing to do for the Australian media or for the Batuta Advocate radio show to get some black voices, to get some black female voices on to talk about these things. There's another conversation that's happening now where every single black person in Australia is just getting DM'd by every single white person they know, asking for, kind of relying on your emotional labour to help guide them through these uncertain times. Is that really doing your head in? Do you have that bloke you went to school with who's like, hey, Chelsea, just quickly, with this whole Black Lives Matters thing, what's your opinion as something or other?
How should I be feeling to make myself feel better?
People know me well enough by now not to slide into my DMs for that kind of work because they don't want to know my answer. That's the thing. But what has made me wise is some of the media interest. And, when you suddenly get called on to comment on things. And I have to say, I think I've got the most calls around Chris Lilly in the last 24 hours.
Right, so forget the police brutality. We want to know if we're still allowed to laugh at a 40-year-old pretending to be a 16-year-old Tongan. Are we allowed to laugh at that? Or
between Chris Lilly and the statues, I've just suddenly been inundated with people going, but what about the statues? And I had a conversation this morning with some show where they were like, when will this end? You're suggesting taking down statues, and it's concrete. It's just a rock.
Yeah.
It's just a rock. It's just a rock.
And I'm like, is 2020 not shitty enough that we have to explain this stuff still?
Yeah.
1 week it's gone from George Floyd to a statue.
Yeah. As long as I don't touch Artie Beetson out front of Suncorp, everyone's all right, okay? Or the Bee Gees up in Redcliffe. We can't forget the fact that the Bee Gees lived in Redcliffe for 18 months.
18 months. That's right, they're Aussie.
Someone threw in Melbourne Inga as well, and she put the Mel statue up.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh no, he got cancer last month. I'm taking him down.
No.
He went for Latrell.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mel. Mel, I'm sorry Latrell Mitchell didn't want to sign with the Titans.
Hey. He rode a scooter at 1 a.m. in the morning. Riding a scooter now is shameful. And so we had to pull the receipts on Uncle Mel and his episode at 1 a.m. in the morning at a Brisbane pub.
Yes.
Which made headlines.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Down Under Bar.
Yeah, easily Googleable.
I am liking the moment, though, where black women are doing the labour right now, locally and globally.
Sam Thaiday isn't.
Just coming.
Like
I was saying, black women are doing the labour and just dragging people.
Yeah.
Like, no one's safe. Raps are getting ripped up left, right and centre.
Yeah.
This is a moment where people go, you know what, while we're here, I'm going to call this out too.
Yeah.
And we need more of it. I mean, we make a show out of it, but it's exciting to see just people coming in, just like calling stuff out and just being staunch. As Queens, Murri's always been staunch here, and you see a lot of the ones that are on the front line, a lot of them are Murris. That's it. Do you see the racism research? I use the term loosely from ANU about. Oh my God, 3 out of 4 Australians have unconscious bias.
You really burst out laughing. You just go,
one of the key findings was it was particularly bad in Queensland and WA. Didn't get any funding for that research.
Yeah.
Couple other stats you can run alongside that.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, this racism's fun.
Yeah. I mean, and it must feel great recruiting new people every day. You haven't got Sam Thaiday yet, obviously. We won't go there, but
we've traded him.
Yeah, no.
Who'd you trade him for?
We traded him for Paul Kelly.
Kelly?
I don't know.
The great,
Good song.
the great white hoe of Peter Garrett, that myth that was dispelled years ago, so it's Paul Kelly now, is it?
He's a good bloke.
Yeah, no, we're trading. We're not playing no more.
No.
We haven't got time to take people along in their journeys. You're either in it or not.
As a white person, I have to say that is not a fair trade. Sam Thaiday for Paul Kelly. We'll let you have this one.
No, stop it. You're being too kind. You mustn't.
Well, thank you for your emotional labour today and joining the Batuta Advocate radio show. And, of course, every Friday, Wild Black Women online. And if you're in Queensland or if you're in the beautiful southeast corner, Australia's Tuscany, they call it, Brisbane.
No, they don't.
You can join.
Yeah, you can live stream us live or podcast us, whatever. But no, thank you to you fellas for making us laugh this morning because goodness knows we've needed it. But also just making us laugh all the time. Like, this is the nature of this place. We need to laugh at some of this nonsense. And so thank you fellas for what you do.
Yeah, thank you.
Good allies.
And now, up next, Kev Carmody on Wild Black. But that is one of the pros of your platform, I guess, on country music radio. Wild Black Women also reaches a lot of truck drivers who just want to hear the next song by Adam Brand. So it's
And
great.
I'm the daughter of a truck driver, so I know all about trucking racism.
Yeah, right.
Because my dad brought it home with him each day after work.
On the two-way.
So I know those people. Yeah, I know those people, and they're staying strong, aren't they?
They love us. They love us.
Yeah. They certainly listen.
That's right.
Hate listening. I love people who hate listening to us.
I know. Our very first, when we first started, our very first lot of complaints, they're just laughing at us. They're just laughing at white people. I'm not going to tune in again until next week.
Yeah. I am not listening to that radio station until they're on.
Initially was the complaints that it was us laughing. So what we did is we then read out the complaints on air to violins and laughed some more.
Violins is a nice touch. I'm sure that really got them wound them up.
Between violins and the Twilight Zone.
Depending on the complaint,
Well, if you want to hear more of this, so you want to hear the violins in full force, you can find Wild Black Women online or, as we said, on the radio. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Chelsea Bond,
Thank you,
Angelina Hurley. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Thank you so much.